We all know that Manchester United need midfielders this summer. I think we all knew that Manchester United needed midfield last summer as well. But this summer specifically, depth in midfield is an absolute must for United. Casemiro's leaving for free after a couple years at the club. Obviously, after his probably one of his best years in football, period. Manuel Ugarte is looking likely also to be sold after failing to make the grade after joining just a couple years ago. I remember McTominay went so we can get him. PSG kind of used that money to get João Neves. If you think about it too much, it's only going to make you mad. Don't worry about it. Mason Mount has been used in the pivot here and there alongside Kobbie Mainoo, but he's not an adequate deep line playmaker or even a defensive kind of minded midfielder as well. It just doesn't suit him well. Now, a £35 million fee for Atalanta midfielder Ederson looks to be done and dusted, and it will be finalized in a few weeks. Shout out to Dylan, by the way, for that one. But that looks just to be the start of Manchester United's midfield rebuild this summer. Links reported conversations regarding several players from all sorts of different leagues and everything all over football, right? Flooding the rumor mill in recent weeks. One such player seems to be the next one on United's list of targets, but it remains to be seen where he stands in the pecking order of squad depth. Is he a straight-up Casemiro replacement? Is he a rotation option for Kobbie Mainoo? Maybe he's a bit of both. We are going to be competing in a lot of competitions next year. Depth is not the worst thing in the world. I am, of course, talking about West Ham midfielder Mateus Fernandes. And today, I'm not only looking at not only taking a look at what he brings to the table as a player, but also how he could fit into Manchester United and Michael Carrick's Manchester United. So that is what we're going to be doing today, folks. So make sure you hit that like button for me, please. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you are new as well. Members, you do get early access for the Legends members to videos like this as well. So if you want to get early access, see them before everyone else does, consider checking out those memberships. The Legends members get that early pick. So we're going to dive in real quick, you guys. I will be right back in a hot second. So, if you watched our £225 million summer rebuild show from last week, if not, I mean, what are you doing with your life, right? Spoiler alert, if you have watched that, Ian, Dylan, and I all opted to bring Mateus Fernandes to Manchester United this summer. If you guys have been following the channel for a while, you remember I actually picked him as one of my Southampton players to bring to United when I did my relegation players video over a year ago. Remember when Southampton, Leicester, and Ipswich Town all relegated? I chose Mateus Fernandes as a player. Now, back then, he was a bit of a 10/8 at Southampton. Played a lot more advanced roles. I mean, that's just the way he was back then. Since then, though, since he's come in really at West Ham, he's kind of taken over for Lucas Paquetá, who left them in January to go back to South America. He has become more of an 8/6. He is a deep line playmaker, but he is also box-to-box as well. I think this role suits him better than that 8/10. I think he's better when he can see a little bit more of the pitch, when he's a little bit more on the back foot in some cases, and when he has license to get forward rather than when he's forward and he has to try to always track back. And I think that it suits him. I think that it has allowed his appeal and his value to skyrocket this season. But, more importantly, let's get back to why you're here, why I'm here. What does he offer as a player, and does it fit with what we're trying to do at Manchester United? So we're going to take a look first and foremost at what is his style of play at the club, right? As a player, what is his profile? What kind of midfielder is he? Now, West Ham really rely heavily on really what is called like a Catenaccio system, if you think about it. It's a compact, low block that aims to neutralize opposition attacks and then looks to counterattack when they win the ball and launch a transition. West Ham are literally like the 92nd percentile for counterattacks this past season. Now, you look at what they've got going on here. They've got a solid back four there. They've got two kind of midfielders sitting a little deeper than the front three, trying to kind of block off those passing lanes. And you can see right there in the middle of the screen, Mateus Fernandes, he's marking Zubameni, but he's also covering some passing lanes as well. This is a very compact structure. Again, like I said, just block off those passing lanes, make it difficult to break down, and they do it well. And what you see, it's very similar to the defensive structure that Michael Carrick has United using. This is our match against Arsenal. Again, strong back line, midfielders kind of looking to block off those passing lanes and cut off a lot of that movement, those options. Something that we're very, very reliant on. Now, where Nuno Espirito Santo's side struggled, though, is, again, the lack of quality and depth, their lack of attacking options going forward. In their system, West Ham relied heavily on players like Malik Diouf getting forward to exploit space. You could see they're compact, sure, but when they get that ball, the only players, they've got a striker advanced, he's marked, he's kind of off on his own, and then Diouf is really going to make this run for Bowen to find. Like, this is their options that they have. And in that system, Mateus Fernandes took on a couple different roles. Again, like I said, at Southampton, he was more of an advanced playmaker who would remain in those advanced positions and get involved in the final third while occasionally dropping deeper. Very similar to what we saw from Shea Charles this season at Southampton. But the interesting thing is that Mateus Fernandes actually prefers to play deeper. Now, Simon Rusk, one of Fernandes' former coaches at Southampton, has revealed as much as well. This is what he had to say. When I spoke to Matty, quite apparently he saw himself as more of an all-around midfield player, more of a number 8. And then that would lend himself to the defensive side of the game. What Matty wanted to do, he wanted to run. He wanted to be involved as much as possible. Now, this is his former coach who has spoken to Mateus Fernandes. Mateus Fernandes wants to play in a deeper, more all-around midfield role, and it's what he's doing at West Ham now. And if you look at his involvement compared to Southampton and West Ham, you can see there at Southampton, advanced positions, putting that ball wide in the opposition half. At West Ham, deeper role, kind of spraying that ball in and around, looking for switches of play, looking for counterattack, exploiting space in behind, kind of the one who's going to be an option for his teammates when they have that ball in their own half, maybe when they're under pressure. Again, that deep lying playmaker role. Look at his heat map. You can see it is just all over the middle third of the pitch, basically. Very heavily involved in the middle of the park, just inside the opposition half, either side, and then obviously a lot of touches inside his own half. With a lot of touches just at the edge of his own box, too. Probably a lot of clearances. Again, the way that West Ham's setup is very deep. You can also see he takes a lot of those corners as well. Now, how does he compare to other midfielders in the Premier League that we've also been linked to? Well, we're going to take a look here. I've got this color-coded. Fernandes is in the blue. You've got Wharton, Tonali, and Anderson, all midfielders we've been linked with, all midfielders who are seen as some of the best in the league at the moment. A lot of transfer news coming out. So obviously the thing you're going to see with Wharton that separates him from everyone else is he is an actual chance creator from deep. One touch, oftentimes even the first touch, receive the ball in his own half, find a runner, set up an attacking opportunity. That's what these key passes mean, is attacking opportunities. Wharton is head and tails above everyone else. Anderson, a little bit of everything. He wins the ball. He carries the ball. He passes the ball forward. Now, he doesn't carry the ball as well as someone like Tonali, for instance, or someone like Mateus Fernandes, but he does do that. But when it comes to ball progression, he is right up there with Adam Wharton. Tonali, again, a little bit of everything. He's probably the closest you're going to get to like a Mateus Fernandes, someone who's kind of getting involved in everything, can defend on the back foot, can work box to box, can get involved in the final third, can play make from deep if he needs to get that ball forward. Tonali is also a little bit of an all-around midfielder as well. But you can see Fernandes among the best. He's right up there with Anderson when it comes to forward pass completion. He's right up there as far as possession one as well. His duels, he's no slouch in duels. He's better than Wharton. He's not as good as Tonali or Anderson as well, but he's also not going to play as many of those progressive, those key passes, those chance-creating balls as well. So he's got, comparatively speaking to other midfielders, this is what you're going to get from Mateus and Fernandes. He can pick a pass from deep to help launch those counterattacks. We've seen that done many, many times with West Ham. He's gotten on a lot of balls and he's found a lot of runners in space. Crescencio, Somerville, and him, they're like this when it comes to launching those counterattacks. His ball progression with passes and dribbling are well above average too. 73rd percentile for forward passes. He's just outside the top 10 for accurate long balls per 90. He's in the 60th percentile for carrying as well, so when it comes to moving that ball. But he also maintains a defensive role off the ball as well, defending on the back foot to cut out play, but also moving the ball, but also reading the game to position himself to break up play a little bit more proactively as well. Now, if you look at like him compared to Anderson and some of these metrics as well, thank you, Sky Sports, you can see he's right up there with Anderson. He's actually better than him when it comes to switching to play. He's actually better than him as well when it comes to winning tackles as well. He's third when it comes to winning those ground duels, not far behind him as well. He's actually in the top 10 for winning possession and winning possession in the final third as well. He's very, very comparative to some of the top midfielders in the league. He's in the top 20% for duels and possession won. He's just outside of the top 10 for tackles per 90 as well. Like he's actually like he just wants to get involved. 4 goals, 4 assists in all competitions this season for him as well. He's just really head and tails just jumped well above his head. He's reached level 16. He's learned flamethrower. He's really moving on. If you know, you know. Like Danny B has said, longtime follower of the channel, big up Danny B. He's called him like a Bruno Guimaraes clone in many ways, and I think that he's spot on with that. He reminds me a lot of Bruno Guimaraes, except he's just a little younger, so he's still finding his feet just a little bit. Remember, too, that Mateus Fernandes joined the Premier League when he was just 19 years old, and he hit the ground running despite moving to a new country, despite joining a struggling team in a very tough league compared to where he was coming from, right? And he started all but just a handful of matches that he's been available for in the league. He missed a couple, I think, for suspension, and another one he came on as a sub. He didn't start, he came on as a sub, and he scored too, and so he's available, and he has no availability is the best ability is the old adage. So compared to other midfielders, that's what you're going to get, and that's what he's going to bring to the table. Now, the big question, is he a Casemiro replacement? That's what we want to know. So again, the big question is whether or not is he is seen as a full-on replacement for Casemiro or if he's some sort of rotation option. Let's look how the numbers compare to the midfielders that we currently have at Manchester United, including Casemiro right now. So you can see, again, Mateus Fernandes in the blue. So obviously, Bruno is basically the chance creator, the ball progression. He will carry the ball on these transitions. He will play a lot of those forward balls. He will create a lot of chances. That's what these key passes are. Kobe is also going to carry that ball, but he's also going to play a little bit more progression too. You can see Kobe's really coming into his duels as well. Kobe is that ball progressor from deep when we're under the pressure. I think his press resistance, his ability to beat that initial press with his touch and carry that ball, and Kobe's also shown that he can put in a tackle. He's really developed his off the ball work and his passing range. But looking at Casemiro, who's in the orange, you can see when it comes to possession one, he's by far head and tails above everyone else. Even ball progression from deep, he's up there as well. But when it comes to similar stats of duels, he and Mateus Fernandes are very similar. Even Fernandes is not that far off when it comes to possession one. In fact, possession one he's like, if once Kobe leaves, if Fernandes came in, he's the best one out of all of them. Fernandes also carries the ball very similar levels to Kobe. A lot of forward passes, very similar to Kobe as well. It's just a little bit below Kobe when it comes to the percentage completion as well. He's not going to play as many of those progressive ones as Bruno is, but nobody is. But he's doing it much, much more prevalently than Kobe, for instance. You can see Kobe in the purple. So when it comes to the off-the-ball work and the deep-lying playmaking from like those long balls, similar to Adam Wharton, that's what you're going to get Fernandes compared to the midfielders we have. Unlike someone like Adam Wharton or Elliot Anderson, Fernandes isn't limited to a single position on the pitch. If you look at like where he and Casemiro compare, though, in the heat map, very, very, very similar. Casemiro is on the top, Mateus Fernandes on the bottom. They are very, 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 very similar. A lot of touches in the middle of the park, just in between the boxes. That is where both these guys live. Now, Casemiro is obviously getting a little bit more touches in the opposition box. He is our big target for set pieces, and that's why. Whereas, as you can see, Mateus Fernandes is the one who's going to deliver those set pieces from corners, especially. But he's not limited to a single position. West Ham's frailties also meant that Mateus Fernandes needed to do a little bit more to cover for his teammates, using his spatial awareness, his reading of the game, his mobility to go and make himself an option, to go and get involved. You know, it's a quality I like from a midfielder, especially from a deep midfielder. I want you to be able to show for the ball. I don't want you not to hide from the ball. It was one of my criticisms of McTominay when he was kind of shoehorned into that pivot role, which is not his best role, to be fair to him, but he didn't really want to be the one receiving the ball off of the defenders, especially under pressure. It wasn't comfortable. McTominay is more comfortable as an 8, a little wider, where he has space. He wants to be the second player to receive the ball, not the first player. Mateus Fernandes has no problem doing that. This means that he's often the guy to relieve the pressure by being the go-to option, the guy who always seems to pop up, something that you see from Elliot Anderson a lot at Forest. In fact, Mateus had more than 400 passes received in the midfield, meaning he is the go-to guy. Big up Meyer Henry for some of these graphics, by the way. Now, West Ham's lack of quality in the squad also meant that Fernandes lacks options as a progressor of the ball. Again, I suspect in a stronger team, he'll have more reliable outlets for distribution. But when you don't have great quality to find, similar like Wharton plays a lot of balls forward. Some of them don't find their target because there's just not enough quality at Crystal Palace. There's not enough players making the ideal runs, and that is a lack of quality there. But you can see this guy receives so many balls. Like Casemiro, Fernandes engages in quite a few duels as well. Plays a lot of balls in behind defenses, especially into wide areas in the final third. You can see these wide areas are where he's going to, the darker the color, the more prevalent he's passing. That's where he's throwing these balls. He's throwing them wide. He's a really good switch of play. He's really good at finding those runners in space. Something I do think I'd like to see us exploit a little bit more at United. Now we can do that a little further when we've seen like Dallo and whatnot kind of tuck inside to draw defenders in and exploit space. We saw that against Chelsea. I'd like to see us do that a little quicker. I'd like to see us do that a little more prevalently. It's nice to have another player who can do that. We're not always relying on Licha or Bruno to have to drop deep. We can have someone else in midfield because Kobe is just not going to be that guy. It's just not his natural go-to. He can improve on it a little bit, but you want someone who's a little bit more natural than that. Mateus has a 70% pass completion into the final third with 510 attempts, which was absolutely a nuts number when you look when you deep it, right? I'd argue his passing range is higher, in fact, than Casemiro's. Casemiro does play a lot of those balls forward, but I think Fernandes has got a little bit more quality on those balls. What he offers that Casemiro, again, even Kobe as well don't, is, again, it's the ability to break the line-breaking passes through the middle of the pitch, through congestion as well, to find teammates in those half spaces, those channels, in those pockets. You know, Mateus Cunha likes to operate a little bit kind of in between the touch line and the center of the pitch. I think that's where we want to get someone who can play those balls. Licha can do it, but if Licha's injured or we're pressed high, want someone else to do it. We don't always have to have Bruno drop deep to come pick up the ball and play quarterback. We want to have someone who can do it, and Mateus Fernandes can do it. And like I said, defensively off the ball, like Casemiro, Fernandes seems to have an eye for where to be to best disrupt opposition attacks. You could see Casemiro's possession, like his possession one numbers are stellar. Unlike Casemiro, in a good way, Mateus is actually a little bit more mobile. He can pop up in and around the opposition box, create little 1-2s using this quick feed, his good dribbling to cause havoc. Kind of like what we saw with his missed chance against Arsenal. Little 1-2 give and go in the edge of the box, and Mateus Fernandes is in space. Now, fair play to David Raya coming out, making himself big. I thought Mateus Fernandes took one too many touches in this situation, but again, he's 21 years old. Very, very young. Something that you hope he'll learn from. But again, what I saw from that play is, again, he can do a little bit more of that intricate work. Something we also see from Carrick as well. The little triangles in wide areas, the triangles in the opposition, around the opposition box to create space. We saw that when Ahmad got on the end of something recently as well. He's showing that he can suit that kind of Spanish-style exploitation of space that Carrick actually really likes. Now, Fernandes is not going to win many duels, so we're going to be missing some of that when it comes to aerial duels. Casemiro was very, very good at winning the ball in the air. We're not going to be getting that from Mateus Fernandes, unfortunately. And we are probably going to miss Casemiro's presence on set pieces a little more because Fernandes isn't the one who's going to be getting on the end of the subs balls. He's obviously going to be the one maybe even kind of putting the balls into the box sometimes, maybe taking over for Bruno now and then. Who knows? Again, that sort of that movement that we saw from Casemiro, that positioning, that has a lot to do with his experience and just his quality as a player in general. Maybe Fernandes can get there someday, but he's not. I wouldn't expect it from him right off the bat. And then another thing, Fernandes can sometimes be just a little guilty of attempting risky dribbles rather than maybe laying off the ball. Again, sound like what we see with Rashford or Garnacho at times, maybe trying to take on a little too much all on his own when a pass or a give and go or even a pass backward would have been the better option. We'll iron that out, hopefully, if we get him. He's 21. We'll see how it goes. That's the bigger thing. Do the young players learn and correct the mistakes, or do they just carry him throughout their career? That's still my biggest criticism of Rashford, is he hasn't improved on a lot of the things that he needed to improve on when he was a teenager. He still makes the same mistakes. So that's a big thing. So moving on, big question here. Is he worth the money? Many United fans, and reportedly United themselves as a club, have scoffed at West Ham's valuation of Mateus Fernandes. 80 to 85 million is the price that we're seeing West Ham is holding out for. It does sound like 50 to 60 million is where United have kind of landed on their own valuation of the player himself, especially when you consider West Ham were relegated. They are in desperate need of cash. I think they recorded like a 104 million pound loss last season. Like, they need money. Obviously, they, even when they're relegated, they aren't going to want to sell all of their best assets, especially a player they've only had for a year, but they might not have a choice, especially with these players getting their wages dropped down from the relegation. Some of these players might even have clauses. I still go back and forth on whether or not Mateus Fernandes has a relegation clause. I've seen some people say yes. I've seen some people say no. It is what it is. We're not going to worry about it. Holding out for more than 80 million, though, may be a bit of a pipe dream for West Ham, which might see this whole thing escalate into a bit of a saga this summer. But word is United do want to avoid a long, drawn-out saga, preferably to get these personal terms agreed quickly, like we've done with Ederson, like we've done last summer with Cunha and Mbumo, Shesko. Getting the buy-in and then trying to figure that out. Once you get the buy-in from the player, the hard part's done, because then the player is now putting pressure on West Ham, for instance, to sell. It is what it is. And the key is if you can get in before other players are sold from West Ham, because the more players they sell, the less players they need to sell, and the harder it becomes. So move quickly if this is what you're doing. But still, 85 million is big money for a midfielder. So the question remains, is he worth it? Let's compare him to a few Premier League midfielders who have also gone for big money in recent years, starting with Declan Rice to Arsenal for 105 million. The first place we're going to look is that move. Summer of 2023, 100 million with 5 million in add-ons was the price that Declan Rice went for, which is just absolutely nuts in my opinion. Back then, if you remember, Rice was only just starting to show signs of this box-to-box role that he's become known for at Arsenal. At West Ham, in about 21-22, he was a defensive force. He spent most of his time in his own half, sweeping up, clearing the danger, kind of just making sure everybody was taken care of in his own half. He wasn't really known for that box-to-box role. As he got older, he started to develop that a little bit more. His ball progression, his playmaking were just starting to show back then. How do his numbers back then look when you compare them to Mateus Fernandes' numbers now? So let's take a look at a couple of these numbers. So dribbles, duels, aerial duels, defensive contributions like tackles, interceptions, block shots. These are what we're looking at first and foremost between the two. Now, again, we're comparing them to what Declan Rice's numbers were when he moved, because that's when we're looking at the transfer value, right? You can't compare them now because it's years later. We're looking at when he moved. They made that big money move. So you see Fernandes has actually got quite a few dribbles going on for him. Duels won up there as well. Fouls won. He's winning a lot more fouls than Declan Rice as well. Tackles, he's actually doing much better than Declan Rice. Defensive contributions is higher as well. Now I'm looking at the raw numbers because these are compared to the current kind of climate. And so when you look at like the percentiles, they're going to be very different because they're comparing percentiles back then, and then Mateus Fernandes are comparing percentiles now. So looking at these raw numbers, you see they're very comparable. Duels won, all that kind of stuff. Possession won in the final third, very, very similar. Recoveries, not that far off in terms of percentiles as well. Let's look at some goals. Pass completion as well. Mateus Fernandes, literally just 0.5% completion rate. Accurate long balls, not that far off as well. Accurate long ball percentage, not that far off as well. Chances created, actually higher than Declan Rice as well. Crossing, higher than Declan Rice as well. Successful crosses as well, like big chances created. Very, very similar, if not slightly worse or slightly better in several of these metrics. Compare them side by side. You can see Mateus Fernandes is actually getting a little bit ahead. He's got more goal involvements this season for West Ham than Declan Rice had when he was at West Ham his final season before joining Arsenal as well. If you look at a lot of these other numbers, again, very, very comparable to what you're going to see from Declan Rice. What about another midfielder who went for a big money? Let's talk about Moises Caicedo when he went from Brighton to Chelsea around the same time. He went for a British transfer record of 110 million with 15 million in add-ons as well. Again, how did we compare here? Dribbles, dribble percentage, Mateus Fernandes has got him beat. Duels won, very, very similar, just not slightly below as well. Now, he's not going to win as many aerial duels again. Caicedo's probably the more like-for-like Casemiro replacement in terms of just that physicality, that defensive nous, but again, not far off as well. And we're going to see tackles. Mateus Fernandes actually has him beat there. Defensive contributions, he's actually got him beat as well. Interceptions, not that far off. Recoveries, not that far off. Possession won in the final third, very, very similar as well. You're looking at like goals, pass completion, everything. Again, not that far off when you want to look at it. In fact, they're just very, very similar. And this is what I mean. Comparing the big money moves, when you look at the numbers, when you look at the comparisons side by side, you start to wonder if whether or not 85 million is a little bit more of a bargain than it might appear to be compared to these other guys who went for big moves. I'm not saying they are. We're just starting on to explore that a little bit more. And then again, you could put them side by side. You could see Mateus Fernandes compared to Moises Caicedo at that time was beating him in several metrics, any way you want to slice it. Now, again, one might argue, looking at some of these numbers, right, that by the comparison, the valuation between all three of these players really shouldn't be that far apart. So the question mark is, are West Ham then justified with their asking price? Now, Declan Rice, in my opinion, was not worth the 100 million that Arsenal paid. Let's just get that out of the way first and foremost. Not that, so we have to find a way to kind of accurately compare these two. Now, not that this site is 100% accurate, right? Because transfer value and really the real transfer value are not always the same, right? It's like appraisal fee for a house versus the actual sale price, listing price of a house. They might not be that similar, right? But transfer market is what I went to look at the transfer value over time. Now, again, you could say it's not great, but I'm using the same site for all three, so we have to. It's like when you play Scrabble, you choose one dictionary to use. Don't let everybody choose it. As long as everyone's using one dictionary, it's fair for everyone. We're using one dictionary. It's transfer market. We're going from there. At the time of his move, transfer market had Declan Rice at 77 million pounds for his value. Caicedo's value was roughly 65 million pounds when he moved to Chelsea. Well below what Chelsea ended up paying for him by nearly half, right? By comparison, transfer market values Mateus Fernandes at 43 million pounds right now. So Rice went for roughly 25 million pounds more than his value. Caicedo for roughly 40 million more. West Ham want reportedly nearly double what his value is, double what they paid for him. And this is just 1 year after they paid about 3 times what he was reportedly worth last summer, by the way. So he was worth like 12 million. They paid like 38 million plus add-ons. Like, it was nuts what they paid. And they paid that all up front. Like, that's just dumb from West Ham. Now, numbers, as we saw, they're just one metric for consideration. The real question is, potential, ceiling, impact. How do you put a value on potential? How do you put a value on impact, on ceiling, right? How do you put a value on future what ifs? It's really difficult. You look at some players maybe from outside of the Premier League, what their moves went for. João Neves went to PSG for 51 million plus 8.5 in add-ons. Compare that to what West Ham are asking for Mateus Fernandes. I mean, where does that stack? Is João Neves a better player? A lot of us will probably say yes. Now, whether or not he has a higher ceiling, yet to be seen, right? But 51 million plus 8.5 million for add-ons for João Neves to go from Benfica to PSG, and then you've got West Ham who are holding out for 80 million plus for Mateus Fernandes after they were just relegated. You start to wonder how accurate their valuation is, right? Vitinha wasn't anything special at Wolves, went to Porto after that, not anything special, went to PSG, and he's been world class, like 2 times Champions League winner, one of the best deep line playmakers in Europe and football at the moment. He's now valued at well over 100 million. And again, don't forget, Fernandes has started all but like a handful of Premier League matches since joining at 19 years old too. He's been absolutely stellar. So in modern football, the role of a midfielder is no longer limited to passing or breaking up play. It has become a central hub that combines tempo, build-up, transitions, and also defensive tasks as well, all within the same system. Can Mateus Fernandes be considered an asset if he were to join United? I think he would. I think he'd be an obvious upgrade on someone like Ugarte, especially in terms of press resistance, composure, ball progression, playmaking in deeper areas of midfield, especially connects the defense to attack, something that Ugarte just struggles to do. Fernandes' long passing and his diagonal switches of play, they would improve our ability to kind of exploit the wide areas, maybe launch those transitions, find guys like Cunha, Mbumo, Dorgu, find those guys quicker, Ahmad as well. His versatility. It allows him to function in a couple different roles in midfield. He can play a little higher up. He can drop a little deeper. He can go a little wider if you need him to be an option as well. He increases our physicality, our work rate off the ball as well. He presses, he recovers, he wins the ball in all areas of midfield as well. I think that's something that is needed from any midfielder. He's not necessarily a standalone ball winner. He's not a shield for the defense, last line of defense, right? But in a structured system, especially one that's a little bit more structured and disciplined off the ball, like we've seen from Michael Carrick. I don't know if you need someone who's just an out-and-out ball winner. I don't know if you need that. You need someone who, yes, they can defend on the back foot. Yes, they can disrupt play. Yes, they can be a defender. But at the same time, you also need someone who can get that ball forward as well. And I do think Mateus Fernandes ticks that box. And he raises the floor of the squad for sure. I think he's an ideal modern midfielder. He's got an incredible high ceiling, and he fits high-intensity, possession-oriented, transition-heavy teams like Manchester United. He adapted to the Premier League quickly as a 19-year-old, joining from Portugal. He has been available for nearly every match since arriving, and he's just continued to improve, even despite a couple of the relegations. Again, look at the sides he's had to play with if you want to point the finger at the relegations. Southampton, yo-yo side, West Ham, been struggling for years. How many managers have West Ham had this season? And they are struggling. Obviously, they got relegated. But again, getting back to the initial point, does he suit United? I think so. Is he worth what West Ham are demanding? I'll let you be the judge of that. Compared to Declan Rice and Moises Caicedo, compared to what we've seen and what maybe just overall inflation, like what that looks like, who knows? I want to know your thoughts, though. Let me know in the comments what you think about Mateus Fernandes. Where does he rank in your targets for Manchester United? Do you think he suits us? Is he going to start next to Kobe? Is he going to rotate next to Kobe? Maybe he just suits certain opposition. Maybe is he a Casemiro replacement? I want to know your thoughts. So make sure you let me know. Don't forget to check the posts section as well for your picks for our 25-26 season award show for United. We didn't do one last season because last season was garbage. We are doing one this season. There are a couple posts on there. There's a couple polls on there. Go vote. Leave your picks for player of the season, goal of the season, match of the season, young player to come through the academy, who's going to do that, all that kind of stuff. Go leave your votes for all that. We can't really get an idea of what to set the polls live until we can start to narrow down these options, because I'm not going through every single goal live. It's going to take forever. But leave the comments for that in those specific posts and go vote on those polls as well. But most importantly, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. Please take a second to hype this video on your phone if you guys are watching as well. Check the memberships too. Again, Legends members do get early access to videos just like this one. If you want to learn how to do that and learn all of what membership offers, go check out all the perks and everything. It is more than just emojis and badges, you guys. So also take a second, check out the United vs. Everybody online store. You guys did just miss the 20% off sale. It did just end yesterday, but there's tons of stuff in there. None of it's expensive. Like the King Cantona shirt. You guys see me rocking this one today. Lots of stuff like that. Mugs, hoodies, t-shirts, everything. But take it easy, you guys. Thank you for joining me for an in-depth look at Mateus Fernandes and what I think he could offer Manchester United. Again, I'll leave it up to you to decide if he's worth the money, if he's a like-for-like Casemiro replacement. But until next time, you guys, like, subscribe. I'll see you guys later.